Read this sentence. Notice that the emphasis is on the person, Sarah, who is the wearer of the helmet. Now, read this sentence. In the second sentence, the emphasis is on the thing, the safety helmet, which is being worn rather than the wearer. The second sentence says the same thing as the first sentence, but in a different way. The first way of describing the information is called the active voice. The second way of describing the information is called the passive voice. Let's find out more about active and passive voice. Let's take a look at some rules for identifying and using active and passive voice. Click each rule to learn about it. In the active voice, the subject performs the action. Read this sentence. The subject Sarah is performing the action, and the object helmet is receiving the action. As the subject is performing the action, the sentence is in the active voice. Let's look at another example. This sentence is in the active voice too. The subject, a friend, is performing the action, while the object, Sarah, is the receiver of the action. Here are some more examples of sentences where the active voice is used. In the passive voice, the action is performed on the subject. Take a look at this sentence. The subject, the picture, is receiving the action of being painted. Here, the object Sunny performs the action. As the subject is being acted upon, or is the receiver of the action, the sentence is in the passive voice. Let's look at another example. This sentence is also in the passive voice. Here, the subject, the apple, is receiving the action. The sentence has no object, and we do not know who has performed the action of eating the apple. The passive voice is used in a situation like this where the doer of the action is not known. Similarly, in this example, the subject, Jack, is the receiver of the action. We do not know who gave Jack the award, so the sentence is in passive voice. The active voice is more direct, so most writers prefer to use the active voice whenever possible. However, the passive voice may be used when the doer of the action is not known, or if the writer wishes to emphasize the receiver of the action. Here are some more examples of sentences where the passive voice is used. When a sentence is changed from active voice to passive voice, the subject becomes the object and vice versa. Look at this sentence, which is in the active voice. The subject, Arjun, is performing the action on the object, the dishes. To change the sentence to the passive voice, make the object, the dishes, the subject. The subject, Arjun, now becomes the object. In the passive voice, the verb washes changes to its past participle form, washed, and the correct form of the verb be is added. When the sentence is in the passive voice, the receiver of the action is followed by the action, the preposition by, and then by the doer of the action. Let's look at another example. This sentence is in the active voice. To change the sentence to the passive voice, make the object, the roof of the house, the subject. Use the correct form of the verb be and the past participle of damage. Then use the preposition by, followed by the object, the storm, which is the subject in the original sentence. Sometimes, a sentence in the active voice cannot be changed to the passive voice. Take this sentence for instance. The word slept is an intransitive verb. Intransitive verbs are those that are not followed by a direct object. Therefore, no passive sentence can be formed. Here are some more examples of sentences that have been changed from active to passive voice. When a sentence is changed from passive voice to active voice, the subject becomes the object and vice versa. This sentence is in the passive voice. The subject, the books, comes before the action and the object. To change the sentence to the active voice, make the subject, the books, the object. The object, the librarian, becomes the subject. When the sentence is in the active voice, the doer of the action is followed by the action, and then by the receiver of the action. Notice that the form of the verb also changes when the sentence is converted to the active voice. Here are some more examples of sentences that have been changed from passive to active voice. The voice of a sentence is changed according to the tense used. This sentence is in the active voice. Let's see how the form of the verb changes in the passive voice, depending on the tense. In this example, the verb plays is in the simple present tense. When we change the sentence to the passive voice, the participle played is used with the auxiliary verb is. Now, this sentence is in the passive voice. The participle baked is used with the auxiliary verb was. When we change this sentence to the active voice, the verb baked is used. The auxiliary verb was is not required. Let's look at some more examples. Click each option to see how the form of the verb changes for different tenses when converting active to passive voice or vice versa. When a sentence in active voice has two objects, either object can be made the subject in passive voice. This sentence is in the active voice, where the indirect object is us and the direct object is a map. One way to change this sentence to the passive voice is to make the direct object, a map, the subject of the sentence. The indirect object is unchanged and is called the retained object. A second way to change this sentence to the passive voice is to change the indirect object, us, to the subject, we. In this case, the direct object, a map, is unchanged and is the retained object. Let's look at another sentence, which is in the active voice. The sentence has a direct and an indirect object. Another way to change this sentence to the passive voice is to change the indirect object, her, to the subject, Anita, and to leave the direct object unchanged. Here is another example of the different ways in which a sentence with two objects in the active voice can be changed to the passive voice. Let's see how active voice and passive voice are used in the following scenario.
Sarah was riding her bicycle one morning. Unfortunately, she didn't notice some broken glass on the road. Sarah cycled right over the broken glass. Her tire was punctured by a sharp piece of glass. And Sarah's bicycle had just been mended. Sarah noticed a silver coin on the road. The coin was heavy and looked quite valuable. Sarah could give the coin to her neighbor, a coin collector. The neighbor would even reward Sarah. For a minute, Sarah wondered what to do. Then she wheeled the bicycle to the police station. Her uncle was a police inspector. Sarah gave her uncle the coin. "Will you find the owner of the coin?" asked Sarah. "The loss of a similar coin was reported some hours ago," said her uncle. "We will surely find the owner." He added, "You are an honest and responsible girl."